happy to be a Black feminist in this moment. There's so many folks who are quiet and cowardly and who are hiding, and I just am appreciative to see all of your faces. So first I wanted to say, thank y'all so much. I want to read your incredible bios, and just looking at you and knowing I get to speak to you this morning, it's just so heartwarming for me. So on this panel, I'm going to start from the far end and come on down with the incredible Malkia Cyril. We lovingly call Matt, pronoun of they, them, he, him. Matt is a senior leader at the Movement Innovation Collaborative, overseeing healing, sustainability, culture, and narrative strategies. Matt is a movement strategist and facilitator, award-winning activist, writer, public speaker, who focuses on collective grief, Black liberation, narrative change, and power building. As the founding and former director of Media Justice, Matt spearheaded two decades of national grassroots efforts for abolition access in a digital age. In an era of rising authoritarianism and devastating mass loss, Matt launched the Radical Loss Project, a Black-led change lab transforming how modern freedom movements face loss and build collective power through collective grief. And I myself have benefited from this work, so thank you for that, Matt. Matt was a strategist in residence at the Narrative Initiative, a leading edge fellow, and a featured voice in the 13th. Y'all may recognize this movie. Film is Oscar-nominated, a documentary by Ava DuVernay, which was released in 2016, along with documentaries like Out Fox in 2004, Misrepresentation in 2011, and Free for All, Inside the Public Library in 2020. After decades of driving power-building strategies on diverse racial and economic justice issues, Matt engages those lessons to build a more holistic and high-impact left movement world, and we're so grateful for you. I'm actually going to not do what I just said. I'm going to hop over to Shana and come back to Ericka because I have a bias here. I'm from Oakland, so I'm going to do what I want to. Shana Griffin, incredible artist, activist, feminist scholar, researcher, sociologist. Her feminist spatial practices exist across the fields of sociology, geography, Black feminist thought, land use planning, and the built environment, and within movements challenging urban displacement, carcerality, reproductive control, climate impacts, and gender-based violence. Everything we need right now. Shana is the founder of Punctuate, a feminist initiative integrating critical research methods with activism and art to address the intersecting forms of everyday violence and subjectivity that Black women, our families, and our communities experience. Shana is the creator of Displaced, a multimedia feminist and public history project tracing the geographies of Black displacement, dislocation, and containment through racial slavery and conquest, and the founder of Jane Place Neighborhood Sustainability Initiative, the first community land trust in New Orleans. The first. Shana is the recipient of several awards, including the 2025 Globe Art Lab Fellow at Harvard Graduate School of Design, a 2023 Diaspora Solidarities Lab DSL Community Fellow, a 2022 Andy Warhol Curatorial Research Fellow, and a 2021 Creative Capital Awardee, because we just get the awards. Come on, period. Shana holds a Master of Arts in Sociology and a Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Sociology. And so now I'm gonna go back, because I'm, like I said, born and raised in Oakland, California, child of the Black Panther Party, so I'm just looking at celebrity right now. The Ericka Huggins. Is a human rights activist, poet, educator, Black Panther leader, and former political prisoner for our rights, so we can sit here today. Her extraordinary life experiences have enabled her to lecture for the past 40 years in the U.S. and internationally on human rights and restorative justice, the physical and emotional well-being of women, children, and youth, whole being education over incarceration, and the role of spiritual practice in sustaining activism and promoting social change. She She highlights the importance of inclusive grassroots movements that honor the voices of the marginalized, especially the youth. Ericka's work as a speaker and facilitator is based in her belief in the greatness of the human heart. She believes that each of us has the ability to look there for the answers to questions about the future of our world. She is the co-author of 2 books, Insights and Poems in 1974 and Comrade Sister, Women of the Black Panther Party in 2022. Her biography, Black Panther Woman, The Political and Spiritual Life of Ericka Huggins, was published in January 2025. Because she's Ericka Huggins. So I don't know if y'all can tell how excited I am. I hope you can. I also want to call into the space Cecily Bowen, who was not able to be here, but who also sent some words along, who is an incredible thinker who helps us think about something called trap feminism. So I will bring her into the space as well. We are going to call Cecily into this space, okay? But what I want to start with is I want to just ask the entire panel really quickly about the title of the panel, right? This panel, this plenary is called Black Feminisms Gets Us Free, Visions of Black Feminist Possibilities. And what I've been really thinking about over the last few months, and also, years, right, is when we say Black feminist possibilities, what do we mean? What does that look like? What do we believe is possible? And I would love to hear from each of you about what you're dreaming and imagining for those possibilities. Who wants to start? Shana? Come on now.
Yeah, it's on now. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, and also to Paris and the Black Feminist Futures team. I also just want to send a love letter to the staff for all of the emails that I missed, and the emails I've missed, and your patience with me and with others as you work digitally, day and night, long hours, late nights to make this event possible. So thank you. I also want to acknowledge Paris and her mom, Mama Gail. Thank you so much. Her birth is such an amazing person. I also want to welcome you all to my hometown, New Orleans. A city I love, a city that was created as a carceral landscape and a colonial enterprise. And as Mama Reese mentioned earlier, literally built on the body's blood and flesh of Black people. And it's also important for us to think about not just Blackness in this space, but also the indigenous people who were stewards of this area before this colonial death occurred. So with that, just really quickly, to help situate, I need to read. Really quickly, the center of my response to this question. I'm going to start with Sabine, Maria, Nancy, Casey, Mary, Sarah, Polly, Susan, Harriet, Linda, Kitty, Fanny, Elizabeth. These are just some of the names of over 220 women who I have found in the archives. Black women and girls who engaged in gestures of refusal in a form of self-emancipation and fugitivity here in the city of New Orleans. I am aware of their names, but not their lives. My awareness is limited by the violent archival fragments of their existence. The carceral visuality of newspaper runaway ads, advertising and jail announcements restrict our understanding of their lives, yet it also allows us to imagine their rebellious longing for freedom and the impossible circumstances they navigated to achieve it. So when I think about Black feminist possibilities, I think through and engage with these ideas, these narratives, these lives. I recognize that I'm acknowledging, when I say Black feminist possibilities, I'm acknowledging the histories and labor of Black women, girls, non-binary, and misgender people, both historically and also in the present, whose lives, encounters, dreams, imaginings create a space for us to exist. As a politic, Black feminist possibilities allow us to move beyond what's in front of us, to make space for what we can create, what can we reimagine, and what we can do. I'll pause there.
Thank you, Shana. Thank you. And thank you again to the staff and the planners for this fantastic gathering of Black women. It's extraordinary. So thank you. Possibility. I'm here because of possibility. You're here because of possibility. Not just our ancestors and our elders, but we are always dreaming into being that which we want, and it becomes real. Possibility. My mother growing up in the Jim Crow, North Carolina, South, and believing that she could do something beyond what she could see. Possibility. She told us stories of how she got over. Remember that hymn? How I got over. My grandmother, who had 11 children, possibility that each one of them would have the best life possible. And then there's me. And what I dreamed at the March on Washington in 1963 when I saw that all the women were uninvited to speak. Possibility that I would someday be able to speak the truth about my Black womanness, about my queerness, about my love of humanity, about how I forgive myself. I learned this in prison, and how I forgive others. That's not lightweight, y'all. Forgiveness is not for the faint of heart. Possibility that Olivia, who is 15 and sitting, I can't see her from here, would have the most gorgeous, excellent life. However she wants to live it, whoever she wants to love, however she can step toward it. Possibility is a seed planted in each of us, and we water it. There's no external something that will drop it into us. It's there, and we are responsible for its growth. And that means that Black women have to love each other. Woo! I mean, really love each other. Because we were taught not to. Generation after generation after generation. So thank you for listening to what I did not plan to say.
How about now? Oh, yeah. Okay. First of all, thank you. Ain't these sisters brilliant? I want to start by honoring my mother, Jenn Cyril, and ancestors. And also was a member of the Black Panther Party in the Harlem chapter. I want to honor my mentor, Audre Lorde, who gave me my first chapbook and helped me, set me on the path of poetry. Barbara Smith, who introduced me to Kitchen Table Press. You know, I have had the honor sitting with Sister Asada. All of these sisters that push me, that encourage me, and remind me as I traverse this gender battlefield that I am part of the circle of Black feminism. Now, I asked Paris, what you want from this thing? What you really want? What you really want? She said, agitate, provoke. So I'm about to, can I be a little agitational? Okay. All right. So I believe that Black feminism can save the world. I believe that. If we remember 4 things. 1, we have to re-inspire and reinvigorate the international character and class character of our movement. We don't forget about class, we don't forget about the international, we've been mainlining neoliberalism for 50 years. We don't forget that there's the rest of the world out here. Okay? That we have to do something beyond identity. We have to actually build power in intervening systems. Number 2, I believe that Black folk are at a very dangerous and difficult crossroads. A crossroads that I think is not wholly dissimilar. Well, I said I was going to be provocative now. That is not wholly dissimilar to the crossroads that Jewish people were at after World War II. Now let me explain. They understood themselves as an oppressed class in Europe, and they were. They were pushed out of various European countries, given some land on top of somebody else's country, moved over there, and they got themselves a little privilege. They began to understand themselves as a new kind of citizen. They then decided that their citizenship would be tied to white power. And that is the citizenship and identity that they have built over this last period. Okay. So Black folk, we at a crossroads. I don't know if y'all can feel me. I don't know who's seen the memes. Sit your ass down, sit your Black ass down. You seen them on the internet? All these memes of Black people, but particularly Black women influencers, say, if you're not going to the protest, sit your Black ass down. We've done enough, it's time to rest. We don't need to do any more for you. We saved everybody already, so there's nothing else for us to do. Now, I believe in rest. I'm not trying to play games on you, I want you to rest. But do I believe that that is a strategy for freedom? No, I don't. About our citizenship. Are we going to tie our citizenship, as many Black men have, who have joined the MAGA party? See, MAGA is a white power party, but it's multiracial. Okay? And it's pulling our men, it's pulling some Black women. I've actually spoken with Black Panthers who were friends of my mama back in the day arguing for Trump. Why? Because they're dissatisfied with the Democratic Party, they're disinterested, and they're demoralized. I get it. But Black people, we on the crossroads. We at a crossroads. So we have to make some decisions about how we understand our citizenship. Will it be tied to white power, to capitalism, or will it be tied to the Black radical tradition as it always been? We have a responsibility much right now. Last thing, I want to talk about, the third thing we got to do is we have to embrace the transgender community. Embracing transgender community, we have to understand how do you, if Black feminism is always about redefining and re-articulating the strategy, not just for Black women, but for Black men too. For all Black people. It's a vision, it's a strategy, it's not an identity politics. It's for everybody, it's not only even for Black people. Let me tell you, Black women is going to free everybody. Everybody. So I want to push us on our gender politics. I want to expand that. Last thing is we have to start. Come on, I know this is going to be hard. We have to rebuild our belief in organization. Now I know we don't trust it. Why shouldn't we? We don't trust leadership. We got beef. I understand we don't trust hierarchy. Why would we? We've been enslaved. We've been disgruntled, man. The Democratic Party has done nothing for us. And yet, organization is the basis of organizing. You organize to move people into power. Organizations build power. We actually try to build power, no? Yes? So then we have to find a way to understand organization as part of that strategy. We have to believe in our leaders. We have to support our leaders. We have to not tear each other down. The internet is fine, but we're not calling everybody out all the time. We got to do something different. Okay, that's it. Okay.
This is what we're going to be passing back. This is what I'm talking about. I'm sitting here looking at the balls like, look at this. Put my laptop away. Let me just go off the script. I knew this was going to happen, man. I knew you was going to say. So, I mean, let's just stay here, right? Let's just stay here. This is important, right? And I'm going to come back this way. So Ericka, I want to talk to you about this particular conversation, right? Because a lot of folks say this is unprecedented times. This is unprecedented times. This is new. We haven't seen this before. That's what I want. See that connection? I want to hear about that, right? I want to hear from you as someone who has been there before, who has done this work. What is the frame that we should be using to understand what we're seeing so we can stop talking about things as if they are new?
Hello. Hi. There's nothing unprecedented. I lived through this time, in this lifetime. Names change, party names and their nicknames change. But the overarching corrupt structure is totally in place. And then there are all of us. And sometimes when I speak at the university level, specifically to women of color, they will say, there's just so much to do, what do we do? Well, the way I was raised in movement, and by the way, we're all meant to move. So we can't take movement and make it a silo, or decide which one is the best one. We meant to move. We can start here and now. And what we saw during both the civil rights movement and the so-called Black Power movement, all of those are just some names somebody stuck on our love for humanity. We took a risk. And I want to say literally, I'm not speaking for randomly, that we put our lives on the line. I'm not encouraging you to do that, but you could at least put your way of viewing on the line. My mother, as I said, grew up in the Jim Crow South. Through her, I lived that before I became as I am. I say as I am because I haven't dropped the movement, though you may not see a movement after my name. I haven't dropped it. Do you need some water? I appreciate you. And so we need to stop thinking in a linear way. And I remember one of my friends calling me the day after the so-called inauguration and said, I can't get out of bed. I just feel so bad. And I said, I do too. But you know what? Get out of bed. Go talk to some children. You know the homeless the house unhoused encampment 2 blocks away? Go sit with some people. Take some food. Take some water. Step out your front door and think about what you can do. As a friend of mine said, you look at what you can do in front of you, to the left of you, to the right of you, behind you. There is always something. So when we name something, we bring it into being. When we name it unprecedented, it means that we don't know what to do. We do know what to do. And it may mean showing up at work and saying something that the boss lady doesn't like. But it's your truth. So speaking your truth about the times that we are in is life affirming. Where we are is not life affirming. And yes, they're cutting everything. And yes, they're throwing away archival material that we never dreamed would be tossed aside. That's what they do. And then they come for us. Then they come for us. And having lived through it, I'm so grateful I can say that I am alive. That was not a given. And I'm so glad to say that my grandson is named after his grandfather, John Huggins, who was assassinated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation's counterintelligence program. We thought that was unprecedented. But there's always some unnamed something. And we have to be ready. That's what being radical is about. You're ready to move. You don't even know for what, perhaps, but you're ready to move. And Mac, I loved the 4 things you said we ought to be focused on. I loved it. And I love it because it reminds me that that is what we were saying in the 60s and 70s. Sometimes our families disowned us out of fear. Sometimes our best friends wanted nothing to do with us because they were fearful that they would lose something, like a job. We could always get a job. But the biggest work is that which really doesn't pay us. There's no way we could be paid for what we're supposed to do. So I'm going to stop there. I hope I answered your great question. It's such a big question. But we need to get out of the virtual bed and get up and go out and by the way, as we're doing it, Black women, tell each other how beautiful we are, how precious we are, how there's nobody like us in the world, but you're saying it to one other person as you see her, and it uplifts her. And it uplifts me when I do it. So there's so much I want to say, and we don't have time, but thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. And Shana, I think this is a great transition to your work and what we were talking about earlier, this concern about displacement and dislocation, right? Like I said, I'm from the Bay Area, and we know that the West Coast has been tragically affected by, folks who just have no concern and compassion around what it means to be unhoused in this moment. And it's been especially worse during the COVID era, right? And so I want to hear from you, because your work specifically connects being unhoused and displaced and dislodged from the land with carcerality and with the intention of the state, right? Doing this on purpose. And so I want to hear from you how we also work through our Black feminisms in a time where we're worried about if we're going to have shelter or if our friends and family are safe. What do we do when we're also navigating the question of safety and security?
Thank you. Such an amazing, powerful question. Really quickly, first, I want to say, Mac, that was the best mic drop I ever saw. Ericka, thank you so much for grounding us and also reminding us not to don't believe the hype. Not that we've been through this before. And in terms of the question specifically thinking about displacement, I would say the same thing. Displacement doesn't just start or end with residential confinement or being unhoused. It started with extraction, thinking about racial slavery. And a lot of times in my work, one of the things I often struggle with is to be able to get people to see that there's a gap that we often miss. We start off with slavery, as if that's where Black people started, at the terror and the violence at sea, through the Middle Passage, and then we get to the 1930s with fair housing, with the housing acts of the 1937 that created the public housing, and the Federal Housing Administration, and slum clearance, urban renewal, a lot of times what we refer to as redlining. But there's this gap. And so for me, when I think about my work as it relates to displacement, and really pushing us to see displacement beyond residential, how do we think about displacement as extraction? Both of resources, including people as well as minerals, but also thinking about displacement as it relates to confinement, displacement as it relates to erasure, dispossession, blame. Once you blame a community or people or a country for something that they did not create, you can justify their mistreatment, their policing, their criminalization, and their eventual disappearance. We've seen this repeatedly historically. And so when I think about displacement a lot and applying it in my work, I definitely engage housing because that's something that people can really connect to, but also recognizing the dangers of social displacement. Thinking about memory is one of the most powerful and dangerous forms of displacement. Once you can erase someone's past, erase people intentionally, violently, controlling and regulating their movement, if they exist or not. And so we are here in the city of New Orleans that was founded in 1718. That's a form of erasure. It doesn't let us know anything that occurred prior to that, or the violence that led us to that moment. And so to me, this thing about displacement is a way of engaging Black time, color time, both color people time, but a deep time that accounts for and the repeat, and how these things repeat. So when you're talking about the step, like stolen people on stolen land, indigenous people from the continent, how they lost that indigeneity and became slaves on the ship, right? And so for me, that displacement, again, thinking about being stolen, a barracoon, a dungeon, the hull of the ship, the plantation, residential confinement in urban areas, deed restrictions, racial zoning, slum clearance, redlining, which I don't even like to deal with. There was so much worse, some would think there was much worse. But even just redlining of public demolition of public housing residents, for people who are incarcerated and confined. How do we also push the boundaries of what confinement is? Not just as it relates to prisons themselves, but racial segregation. So we exist in this arc where we think about one, and then in the present, where we're not thinking about what has led to that, and what makes it possible. And history doesn't repeat itself, it reminds us when we haven't been wise. So I feel like it's an ongoing project. Just as colonialism is an ongoing project, getting free is an ongoing project of resistance, right? And how do we keep pushing that? And not get caught up in, I would say, the distractions of saying, is this fascism, is it this? It's all of it's the same. The characteristics that constitute fascism is the same characteristics that constitute ideologies of hate and control and regulation, whether that's slavery, whether that's conquest, whether that's eugenics policies, immigration regulation, and also when we think about in a moment when we are witnessing genocide and don't know how to say it, and afraid to say the names, to say Palestine, right? And also afraid to say Palestine, and also assume that what's going on in the Congo and Sudan don't exist. So how do we hold space for that? And also all in the ways that people are dealing with it every day in their own homes and localities and communities. So these, I feel like getting free, Black feminist possibility, necessitate a push to fight against these ongoing, very old and ancient forms of control and domination. And how, for me, I think about how do we see Black feminist possibilities as an intervention, as a provocation, as a vision, as a strategy, as a way of creating new type of encounters, and a way to reimagine differently.
Thank you for that.
One other thing that I want to note is also to think about the ways in which, because you mentioned land, I do a lot of work related to land and also soil. I collect soil, don't laugh though, but I collect soil from former and current sugarcane plantations lining the east and west bank of the Mississippi River. I have collected a lot of soil from this well plantation that many of you became aware of recently. Nottoway. Nottoway Plantation is located in a small town that only has 2 red lights. And that town is called White Castle. White Castle is a reference to Nottoway because Nottoway was referred to as the White House of the South. It was one of the largest plantations in this country. And it burned, right? Well, let's not get too happy, right? The legacies of that plantation, so many others like it, is constantly with us. And to me, when I'm collecting this soil, I'm engaging this collection as engaging in an exercise of Black feminist cartography. We're imagining and thinking differently about the geographies of these landscapes, recognizing the ways in which women, men, children, those whose gender we do not know, toiled the land, worked the land, created families on this land, watched loved ones born and sold into servitude, and died on the land. How their lives, their dreams, their efforts of resistance is marked in the land. And the collection of this soil, for me, and acknowledging, when we think about land acknowledgements, is a protest against forgetting. And with that protest against forgetting, how do we think about what are the feminist spatial imaginaries that exist within a built environment? How do we step into that? How do we acknowledge it? And how do we coexist with land that was once stewarded by indigenous people? How we also became part of that land, working it.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, I want to remind folks that if you have inmates cards to ask questions, please write down your questions. Volunteers will get those questions from you and we'll answer them shortly. I see that. Thank you. And I want to also, I I hear a lot here, right? The black feminist in me is like, oh my gosh, I hear some Stillers, I hear some Brittany Cooper's argumentation around time being white supremacist in orientation, right? And she's in the building, I'm so grateful for her being here as well, right? I think we're hearing so many things in what you just said, where so much of what this is about is erasure and memory and the intentional forgetting, right? You know, we think about the attacks on critical race theory, book bans, right? The efforts to keep young people from learning their actual history, right? And so I know that there's some debate, is this fascism, is this oligarchy, is this just something we lived through before? But we've got to have that conversation, right? We've got to, as a political scientist, I'm sorry y'all, I got to do this. But there are some actual kind of representations of what fascism is, right? We know that these kind of direct kind of retaliatory efforts by this administration to harm opponents of this administration, that's a form of fascism, using the Supreme Court, using our institutions, foregoing checks and balances, right? Undermining the actual Constitution. These are representations of fascism. But what I want to ask is, does it matter? Does it matter if we call it that or not? Because for so many of us, it feels the same, right? For those of us who are queer and are trans experience, we have been fighting our entire lives, right? Our family members have been moving in and through unhoused experiences, incarcerality, our entire lives. And so what purchase does this kind of use of the language of fascism or oligarchy or authoritarianism, what does it do for us in this moment? And I say us, and the people in this room. I'm gonna start with you.
Provoke. Yeah, it matters. Yeah, it definitely matters. It matters because the felt experience is one part of the equation, but we strategists, you know, we trying to do something. It's not just about how we feel, it's about what is material. What is rooted in the material reality. And the material reality is that something that many of us, there's many people, let me just see. Who here was born after 1980 in this room? Raise your hand. Okay, so just look around for a minute, right? In their lifetime, it's unprecedented. Understand, that's what I'm saying. It's not unprecedented in the history of the world or in the history of the country, but there are a huge body of people who have not seen these relations of power before. And so it's important because they're about to be the ones that handle the business, I'm hoping, okay? But I'm not gonna be here for that long, you know what I'm saying? Like, so one, I think it's important to understand history. I think it's important to not claim this is unprecedented. I think it is important to understand that it is new for many people. And the reason that that's important is because, look, let me just, I wrote these. Look, fascism has some key elements that I think we need to understand, okay? That's the other reason why it's important to call it fascism. Fascism is not simply a cultural phenomenon. It is an economic phenomenon, okay? We have to understand the economy. We out here talking about, you know, how they treat us, but I want us to understand what the economic motivation for that treatment is. You understand what I'm saying? Why do they see us as surplus? How do they understand our relationship to what they're trying to achieve? Because that has something to do with the policies they create. It has something to do with the society that they built around us, right? So one, I want to, look, the authoritarian savior. Okay, I don't need to say nothing else. The race and gender hierarchy, we see it, okay? But in this case, it's explicit and extremist, right? It's not just structural, it's explicit and extremist. We got the nationalism that's driving mass expulsion of a set of people. You see it, right? Okay, now let me stop there for a second. Now, the piece that's important, because we try to understand stuff on a continuum of history. Now, black folk been dealing with mass expulsion. It's just look different. It looks like mass incarceration, right? We've been experiencing people being kidnapped out of the community, and in the millions, but it's called mass incarceration. It looks different. But we have to start understanding deportation in the same way we understood the Fugitive Slave Act. Okay? Mass expulsion is mass expulsion by whoever it is against. Whoever is against. Malcolm X said, I'm for the truth, whoever is for and whoever is against. And that's what I'm saying. Okay, so fascism, understanding fascism is essential to understanding this moment in time. To understand who the players are. Yes, there are oligarchs. They use it, they done made a lot of money off this digital infrastructure, and they use it to build their little fun cities, you know what I'm saying, their little fake white man cities, you know what I'm saying? They're doing it, right? And the thing is, and there's the Confederates, and there's a bunch of different players. But we can't act like they're all the same, because one, that makes us think they're invincible. You know, they are all exactly the same, they all have, look at Musk and Trump, they beefing right now. Why? Because they don't have exactly the same interests. And just like they wedge us, we need to be wedging them. I said it.
Yeah, I love you, man. I'm sorry. Did y'all want to respond? Come on now. Okay. Come on. Well, I do have more questions, girl, but I also want to get to some of these audience questions because they're very, very important. I do have one question here. It says, in a neoliberal capitalist society where hyper-individualism is a system of oppression, how can we get others to show up for this movement?
Well, we show up. That's one way. And people see that and consider it. And often, and I'm not just talking looking back, but looking forward, with people way younger than me, we need to mentor in a way that we can redefine. Mentor is not just an academic notion. It's not gender-based or age-based, but it is a way of seeing that someone doesn't see the big pothole and is stepping toward it and yell, scream, or kindly say, don't go any farther that way, come this way. There's something about us, if everybody in this room showed up. How many people are here, do you think?
Well, the Hoover app says 539.
Paris, about how many people are here? 500. What if we went home to wherever that is and mentored? What if we showed up as the seed for new movements? I'm not talking about movements that have to have a name, but just something you're doing right in your community. This is what the Black Panther Party's 64 community survival programs did. We said, oh, government, man, they're not going to feed us. They're not going to feed our babies. They're not going to give us health care. They're not going to bus us to the prison so we can see our beloveds. We just kept thinking of things. Did we have any money? No, we didn't have any money. But we showed up. I would like you to know that there are people in Oakland and across the country, but particularly Oakland, who have replicated the party's programs. The People's Kitchen Collective. They're amazing. You know about them? They're meeting people based on the community survival programs of the Black Panther Party. We created them to be replicable anywhere, in any language, for all the people. The Black Panther Party's whole mission, I'm saying this because we can do it, was for all poor and oppressed people. We were black folks for everybody. Do you know how amazing that was to me? So we can show up. There's so many talented, skilled, experienced, brilliant strategists in this room. I know it because I know some of you. And it can happen outside of our workplace, which in most instances it needs to do. We show up first, and people will follow. That's how it works. I don't know, there's so many examples in history, but, I hope that makes sense.
Can I throw an addition on that? I think that part of how we show up, part of the mechanisms and the infrastructure for showing up is called community organizing. I just want to throw it out here, you know what I'm saying, right? And we're in a time where they're destroying, they're trying to attack our nonprofit structures, and so we have to return, in some ways, back to an understanding that our movement work was never meant to be contained inside the nonprofit. It's a tool. We're going out the back, but we're not contained to that. We can't be restricted by that. We have to ask ourselves, we're talking about neoliberalism in this question, right? Why are membership bases in America so small? Why has the membership base of the labor movement shrunk so small? This is deliberate. These are deliberate acts on the part of a white power structure. And so in our resistance, you ask, how do we show up? The question is, how do we get people to show up? We go to their house and organize them. We talk to them. You can't do that online. You can't do that on the internet. You got to go to their house and sit and have house meetings. And you can't do it at the mass protest. That's a reaction. We're talking about something deliberate and strategic and thoughtful. We need membership bases. They pay dues. I don't care if it's $1. I don't care if it's 50 cents. But you make an investment in an organization. We have to be able to have organizations. How do we get people to show up? We meet them where they at. After the loss, after the hurricane, after the earthquake, after the COVID, can we go and bring something to them that they need? Who are the people that be driving around delivering water? See, the white militias understand that to some degree. They be out here delivering gas to their people, delivering water, and controlling the resources. We have to ask ourselves, just the same way that you brought up the Panther survival programs, what are the survival programs we need today? How do we lead through the impending crisis we're in? We got to meet people where they at. We got to organize.
That's right. Yes.
Can I just add a couple
Yeah, please, yes.
In addition to the organizing, I really appreciate Ericka saying we show up. I think it's important in showing up that we also listen. We invest in a common public and common narratives, creating space to actually listen and not to use our own standards and ways of living to judge others. Also, because we are on the eve of the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, I just want to note that I have a lot of trauma as it relates to community-engaged processes, whereby a lot of times you bring community members together and you ask, what do you want? What do you need? It's the worst questions to ask, because you are starting from a framework of deficit, assuming that the community is missing or lacking something. And so when we're thinking about organizing, relationship building, and community building, we should be asking, what do you know? What are you interested in? Because what we know, we can use that as stepping stones to build for the things that we desire for our community. And so to me, it's like, how do we think about listening and moving beyond, the jargon, the rhetoric? Because a lot of times people can't hear you and we can't hear each other. So how do we learn to listen differently?
church today. Oof, okay. This next question, that's a lot of questions. Okay, this next question I really want to ask, because I know everyone on the stage cares for children. This question says, do you have any advice or any words for those in the movement who feel somewhat de-radicalized by having children? How do we still get there? How do we still get out there? How can we engage our young kids in this work?
You know, my mother told me when I was very young, I had a little incident where I got this chapbook, right? And I was very excited. My mom told me she bought 100 copies of my little chapbook. I was 14. And she said, you know what, go on out to the Restoration Plaza in Brooklyn and sell the chapbook, get you some money. I was like, yes, I can do that. I went out, sold my little chapbook, I was very excited. Came back, had about $1,000, okay? I was very excited. I didn't even sell it for $1. I was supposed to sell it for $1, I sold it for more. I felt like a hustler, you know what I'm saying? And I came back, my mom was very proud of me, and she said, okay, now who you want to, what charity are you going to donate the money to? I said, excuse me? I said, I work for this, you know, this is my money. And she said, no, that ain't for you. You have a gift. And the point of a gift is to give it. I think that in that moment, that was a radical parenting. That was radical parenting, yeah? And that when we don't always understand that our job as parents, my mother's job as a parent wasn't always to go out and do something out there. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it was to do something in the institutions where I was engaged. At my school, you know, in my neighborhood. Parenting, I think, and she told me this too, can be a conservative, an act that makes you feel more conservative, because now you're scared, right? You're afraid for your child. So you're less willing to do X, Y, and Z. I looked at my mom's FBI file, and the last part of it said, you know, they declassified her, or they reduced her security, whatever it's called, like the label, where they say you're at this level of security threat to this level of security threat. And they said because she moved out of the pad, you know, she had disassociated herself to some degree. And, you know, that was in April 1974. I was born May 2nd, 1974. So I understand the question, you know, I understand the question. And yet she then built, Black liberation schools, because I was, nursery school, because that's how old I was. And then she helped build the Black Science Skills Center when we had to go there. And then she radicalized the Black parents at the high school. You know, all I'm saying is we fight where we stand.
The Black Panther Party ran a school, most amazing elementary school I have ever seen, visited, or had good fortune of being connected to. To this day, I say that. It is also being replicated, its principles. I raised my first 2 children there. And my 3rd child is a son. My older son was raised at the Oakland Community School. I was a director, which meant nothing, because it wasn't about a role. It was just somebody had to sit in the office. My door was open, and I helped families. This is in East Oakland. Every city has an East Oakland. So I don't need to describe it, it's the people gathered here. What am I getting at? That school taught, reminded young Black children of their beauty, their intelligence, their goodness, and reframed for them what they've been taught if they've gone to a public elementary before that. We were all family. I was like their auntie if they weren't my own children. All of us were represented family to them, and those young people who are the ones that are still alive and well, remember that school as, quote, the place where they learn to be a black woman or a black man. Why? Because no topic was hidden. If they wanted to talk about slavery, they did, and I'll tell you a story. It's quick. When I was feeling some kind of way about being around adults, I would go to each classroom and hang out there. Because being with children is just so refreshing and uplifting. So I walked into Amar's classroom. He was the history teacher. He was political studies and all of that. And a little boy who asked like a million questions all the time, every day, Gregory, said, Amar, because we got rid of that, you have to call somebody by their last name thing. Amar, we got this picture on the wall of a slave ship, but it looked like a sardine can. Could you explain what happened to the slaves? Now we have this notion that children don't want to know that, which is heartbreaking, overwhelming, saddening. That's not true of children generally. They just want to know the truth. So that is, educating children is a radical act. Parenting is a radical act. Let me finish the story. So Amar said, well, Gregory, what would you like to know? He said, well, if they had to pee, where did they pee? Because they had to crotch. And some little boys laughed, because that was okay. And the little girl said, well, what if they had to poop? Right there. And this tender-hearted little girl, I'll never forget her, she said, but what if a mama was pregnant? Where'd she birthed the baby? Right there. Gregory, who had asked the initial question, said, okay, now I get it about slavery. It was evil. And Amar asked him what he meant about evil, and he said, he couldn't really explain, but it had the absence of love. These children were 8 and 9. Amar had them lay on the floor, hip to hip and head to crotch. And they got to experience that. And they had a few more things to discuss. And they said, now we understand. Thank you, Amar. That's not in a book like that for children. Again, we show up. We're the ones who may have some information, and a good thing is to say, if you don't know, say, I don't know, I'll find out. The other day, my older son, who is now 50, said, Mom, why did you raise us sons, the 2 sons, I have a daughter? Why did you raise us to look out for women and girls? I remember that you did that, but I don't know anybody else's mother that I can think of that did that at that time. Why did you do that? He wasn't saying it was the wrong thing for me to do. He was saying, it was powerful because it taught me to respect women, not just you or my sister, but all of them. There's so many things about parenting that do take us away sometimes, like Janet having to move to raise you. It has happened for me. But we do our best, like you said, where we stand, where we are. In talking to one of the leaders of the early leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, she asked me, because she had a little son, what do I do now, Ericka? How am I going to continue and raise this child? And I said that the child is part of what you are doing. Take him with you if you can. Be with him. Make him a priority and continue to do what you do. That's hard, she said. Yeah, it's hard. But so is everything that we're doing. So children are not in our way. They're not in our way.
I feel like Ericka did. Yeah, I would just add that children are also the movement. And investing in children, it's like investing in each other. And we shouldn't question if someone is not present. We should celebrate and create space and also reflect and interrogate our movements to make them more inclusive. And also create space for children to be children, I think is important. And also recognizing many of the spaces are spaces like this, I would say it's like political homes. And sometimes these are not spaces that we can exist in all the time. And so how do we cherish these moments and then we go back out? Because many of us exist in the public sphere, right? Whether that's public housing, public education, public transit, public libraries, public hospitals, like the publics. And the public for me is the people. And so how do we see this relationship with spaces like these and also the public spaces as one and the same? So regardless of where you are, we're investing in supporting each other and creating space and also critiquing and challenging to make those spaces much more inclusive and honoring the independent work and the collective work that we're engaging in.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the panel, and I do have some questions that were specific to each of you. I'm going to give them to you, and I would encourage folks who wrote these questions to introduce yourself and let them know these were your questions. Just before we head out in the last few seconds, I would love for you all to just leave us with one sentence, just one sentence about what you would like folks in this room to do, what strategies they can employ right now, today, to get the work done, to get free.
I'll just start really quickly. Getting free is an ongoing project. It's not a one-time thing. I often refer to, it's like cleaning your house. You know, it's like you clean the house, it's nice and it's clean, but you have to live in it. So it's not going to stay like that. And if you just clean once, and then like every month, it's time for a coup. Like who wants to live like that? Like every moment, it's time for a new revolution to clean the house. And so I feel like revolutionary work, getting free is an ongoing project. It's a daily practice.
One sentence. Face your losses with extraordinary courage. Let the grief transform you. Let it make you more curious. Let it make you less bitter. Let it make you more courageous. I think as we do that, and as we stand in that vulnerability, like Brother Malkia Cyril said, tell no lies, yeah? Let people see you. Fail in public. Allow it to be what it needs to be. and then we can vision the future together.
2 sentences. Maybe 3. Yeah, commas. Come. Okay. Oh. Che Guevara was one of my revolutionary heroes. Che Guevara and Harriet Tubman. Che said, "At the risk of seeming ridiculous, a true revolutionary is guided by great feelings of love." Love is a great power. Use it to transform your world. That's from me. So I'm letting you know that the love I'm talking about, you have to first acknowledge its power within you. It is not TV love. It's the power we're all born with, and it's fierce. So that's the love we can use to transform our world, because it can become the actions that we take. This panel was a call to action. I just want to thank you, really, Jenn. I want to thank you, Shana. And as usual, I always want to thank you, Matt. And it's thank you all for listening so attentively and for asking questions that didn't go on a card. I know you're asking questions in yourselves. So thank you for being gathered here like this, in this room full of love. Thanks.
I'm going to close with just one last sentence from Cecily that I think is really lovely. She said, "It is possible for us to design the lives we want for ourselves and our families, because we do it all the time when we stop waiting for permission and affirmations that we just don't need." So get free, y'all.
All right, beautiful people, thank you so much for that incredible plenary. Take what juices you got from this moment into the amazing workshops that are about to happen right now. So they are open. Please go ahead and make your way. Thank you.